The 4th generation Giant Revolt gravel bike is here. And it surprised me. It's got some really quite useful design choices that make it a really versatile bike. Our friend Josh is sponsored by Giant, and he was the first person in the world to get hold of one of these prototype bikes. He's just arrived back from a gravel race in Kenya and dropped the bike off to us for a first look. Hello.
My lips are sunburnt.
That's why it weighs so much more. Well, yeah, it's a wet kit from Africa. Oh. I forgot my sleeping bag, so I had to go and buy a kid's one from Decathlon.
The bike we have here is a Revolt Advanced Pro in size small. It's got Giant CXR 700C carbon wheels, Pirelli Cinturato gravel tyres in 45mm. We've put these on ourselves because Josh's tyres were trashed from the trip. 2x SRAM Force axis, Giant D-Fuse seat post and handlebar, and some Redshift inserts underneath the bar tape. It's also covered in crap. Tell me about the event. What did you just come back from?
Migration gravel race in Kenya, 4-day stage race in the Masai Mara, and it was like incredible. You're riding along, seeing giraffes, elephants, cheetahs, and it's the bumpiest terrain you've ever experienced. 2 days of just bone-shattering terrain. It's a mountain bike race that you do on a gravel bike basically. But then you get these amazing stretches where you're descending on single track for half an hour, and it's like bliss because you've been going on these bumpy roads and washboard for so long, and then you hit this beautiful bit of single track in the middle of Africa with all the wild animals, feeling like you're in complete wilderness. It's pretty breathtaking.
We're now going to weigh the bike. The bike has Garmin mount on the front and 2 giant bottle cages, one of which has a weird little tool mount bracket thing on the bottom. I think this is going to surprise some people. I must be getting stronger because it actually weighs 9.14 kilos. I would have guessed 8.
Compared to the old model, not that much has really changed. It now has internal cable routing and storage, so you can fit tools and spares inside the frame, which we've seen on a lot of gravel bikes these days. The D-Fuse handlebar and seat post has been redesigned to accommodate the new internal cable routing, and that's about it. The thing I quite like about this bike was on the old model as well. It has a flip chip. Often seen on mountain bikes, usually at the suspension linkages, you have a little chip which you can flip around and make your mountain bike slacker. This bike has one in the rear dropout. So it has 2 positions. You can flip the chip around and move your back wheel further out or closer to the bike. In the rear position, you get 53mm of tyre clearance, which is absolutely massive. It lengthens the wheelbase, so the bike is going to feel more stable at high speeds. In the forward position, you get 42mm of tyre clearance, which is more than enough for most gravel riding, and it tightens up the bike and means you can ride more technical stuff. Quite a cool thing to see on a gravel bike, in my opinion.
On the gnarlier gravel bits we slung it on, the back did feel a bit twitchy. What Francis then made me aware of is the rear wheel has 2 positions, short and long. So I'm assuming Josh had this on short for his race because he was thinking about less aggressive gravel and going as fast as possible. However, probably for most people, especially based on the geometry of this bike, you'll probably have it set to long, so it's just a bit more stable on the gnarlier stuff that you're sending it into.
Price. Unfortunately, there is 0 information about the price at the moment because it's such a new bike. However, we can guess that it will be similarly priced to the Liv women's specific version of this bike, and we know that is £5,599 for this spec. Exactly the same spec as the one that Josh has got here. More prices will follow. If we find them, we'll put them as a pinned comment or in the video description for you. Sizing. I thought there was a mistake on the geometry chart when I read it because the small sizes both seem to have the same reach, whether you choose extra small or small. It looks like the handlebar options are fairly limited as well. Granted, some people want to ride larger size handlebars for gravel, more control, but I would have liked to have seen more variation, not only in the frames, but in the handlebars too. We seem to spend a lot of these videos just moaning about bikes not being small enough. For good reason. We're going to carry on until the industry finally makes bikes small enough. This bike is massive and so wide, I feel like a giant gorilla riding it. That's my review. I think it's very, very upright, and that's down to Josh's setup. We didn't want to take any spaces out, and maybe he didn't want to chop anything at the steerer, but I think even if it was slammed, it's still quite a high position, and you're going to struggle getting it lower. Yeah, you can use a normal stem on here, so you can install a stem of negativity. I think it's fair to say it's not going to be the choice for like gravel racing, the unbound kind of stuff. This is more your bits of single track and technical riding, and rides through mud, hence the tyre clearance. Having said all that, I do quite like it. I like how it looks in it. I've had fun, and I've been absolutely fine riding with you, Jimmy behind the camera, while he rides a very fast road racing bike. Welcome to Livability, the bit of the video where we take apart the stem and the seat post as if you're going to pack the bike away to see how much of a pain in the arse it is. So the cable routing is now semi-internal. It's not a one-piece bar and stem. However, the hoses run underneath the stem and then down into the frame, which makes things really nice and neat. The plus side for livability is that the stem and bar is normal. You have one bolt in the top for preload and then two on the sides to fasten it up. It's a regular bar and stem. So far, getting the seat post out is a two-man job.
There you go.
Oh!
To be fair, that has a lot of dirt in it.
Oh, got it.
So the seat post it comes with has been designed to have some flexibility in it, and therefore it comes with a shim that sits on the back that makes the seat post round. So ultimately, if you don't use this, you can just use a normal seat post without the weird shim, but you still have to deal with this, which we're not a huge fan of because they always end up falling out of the frame, getting stuck in the frame, and you have to tilt it in weird ways to get it to fit. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the best scenario around. The front end is completely normal and easy to use. The axles are completely normal and easy to use. We don't love these, so I'm going to give this 7 out of 10.
Seat post and handlebars. They've got a suspension built in, which means it's going to creak. Actually, no it's not, because there isn't any widgets or pivots or complicated stuff built into them at all. It's just carbon that's been shaped in a way that's going to cause some flex. The defuse seat post and handlebars have been created to flex in the right places to give you a bit of compliance. Allegedly, 12 millimeters of flex in the seat post and 10% more compliance when you're pushing down on the drop handlebars compared to a round handlebar. Does it work? The suspension in the handlebars and the seat post works. It feels really smooth on the gravel tracks and potholes. It's a shame though that the bars only come in massively wide. Like, I feel almost a bit bad for Josh that he was racing on these, which are they're just too wide. Of course they're going to fit some people, but is it too much to ask for just some smaller sizes, particularly for women?
They are giant bars though, so... I berated Josh when he referred to the seat post as having suspension. Technically it doesn't, but it is definitely spongy, like in a good way. It's actually, it's a fantastically comfortable bike. I am surprised. I thought it was going to be horrible. It's actually a really good bike. It just isn't for me. It's not the bike for me, but that doesn't mean it isn't still a great bike. It's comfortable. The geometry is like a Dutch town bike, which for some people will be fantastic. It's light, it's comfortable, it functions. It's a good bike. And bear in mind, this one has been abused in a race in really extreme conditions, and it still rides fantastically.
I did put about half a bottle of chain lube on there. One brilliant addition in relation to the seat post is that they've made an adapter, which when used allows you to install a standard round seat post, which means if you've already got a seat post that's super light, you can use that. If you have a dropper post, you can fit that in. A thing that I wish we saw more on most of the bikes with proprietary seat posts, even the road bikes. Being able to use a round seat post is really useful. I've seen this before from a brand here in the Northeast called Viello. You can fit a normal round seat post in. I wish adapters like this were more widely used. Well done, Giant. After my ride yesterday on the bike, I was looking at the bike in my kitchen and thinking, I really want to take it for a ride. I love the bike, but only if it was set up for me. And this is part of first rides. We don't have access to the bike for that long. Josh has got to have it back to do some riding for himself. Personally, I would have lowered the front end a little bit, and I wish it had narrower bars. I did check whether the Liv bikes, so Giant's women's specific company, make narrower handlebars, and they don't really. They go down to 40 centimeter, which is not narrow enough in my opinion. You could fit any other normal drop handlebar from a third party, but obviously you'd lose the suspension that they put in these defused ones. Where does that mean this goes?
If I hadn't ridden this bike, just looking at it and the spec of it, I would have put it in there. And the main reason for that is it's basically a mountain bike with drop bars. I don't quite know who it's for. Having now ridden it, I think it deserves a place in pretty good because it is a very good bike. I just don't think there's lots of people that it's the right bike for. But there are some people that do want that kind of mountain bike feel for off-road riding, and that's totally cool. If you are one of those people, it's a good bike.
It's going in pretty good. Thanks for letting us borrow it, Josh.